morning.
You see my victory. When all I see is a mountain, you see a mountain move. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear, for I'm safe with you. Come on, let's lift this up together. So when I fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And every fear I lay at your feet, I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet, I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. In almighty fortress, oh, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. In almighty fortress, oh, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. In almighty fortress, oh, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against
Darkness, your hour is over. Behold, the love is dying clean. Behold the grace of Calvary, that rugged cross, soon to be the emblem of a risen King. Behold the King, Light of the world, Lamb that was slain, Lion arose, mighty to save. The fullness of God won't be kept in a grave. Darkness, your hour is over. Light of the world, Lamb that was slain, Lion arose, mighty to save. The fullness of God won't be kept in a grave. Darkness, your hour is over. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. One head gets to wear that crown, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. One head gets to wear that crown, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. One head gets to wear that crown, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. One head gets to wear that crown, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. Light of the world, Lamb that was slain, Lion arose, mighty to save. The fullness of God won't be kept in a grave. Darkness, your hour is over. Light of the world, Lamb that was slain, Lion arose, mighty to save. The fullness of God won't be kept in a grave. Darkness, your hour is over. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. One head gets to wear that crown, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. One head gets to wear that crown, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now.
I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for me. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. I'm calling on the God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible. I'm calling on the God of David, who made a shepherd boy courageous. I may not face Goliath, but I've got my own giant. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. Oh, how I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. Oh, how I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. You heard your children, then you hear your children now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. 'Cause you are the same God. You are the same God. You were providing then. You are providing now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You moved in power then. God moved in power now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a healer then. You are a healer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a Savior then. You are a Savior now. You are the same God. You are the same God. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm sitting on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. hearts right now. You are the same God. Yes, you are the same God. You touch the lepers, and I feel your touch right now. You are the same God. Yes, you are the same God. On the Holy Spirit, almighty river, come and fill me again. Oh, come and fill me again. Oh, come and fill me again. God, we thank you this morning for your presence, that you are with us. God, that you're the same God today as you were yesterday, and we can be confident that tomorrow you will stay the same. God, that no matter the circumstance we find ourselves in, God, we can rely upon you. We can lean into you. And God, I lift up this morning those who find themselves in that hard place today. God, I just ask that you remind them of your goodness, of your faithfulness, of all the times that you have been good. Remind them that you will carry them through whatever difficult thing they are facing today. And God, we thank you today for your presence, that you are here now with us. And God, as we've come here to seek you and to worship you and to praise you, God, as you are working and moving, God, help us to respond to your leading today. God, those things that you are calling us to surrender to you, help us to do that. Those areas in our lives where you are calling us to grow and to take steps of faith. God, give us a faith and a boldness and a humility to trust you. God, that we might put aside the things of our flesh and embrace more fully the things of you. And God, as you are speaking to us today, whatever you have for us to receive, God, help us to receive it. Give us the right hearts and attitudes that we might respond appropriately to how you are working and moving today. God, we love you and we thank you so much for who you are. God, for who you've always been and who you always will be. And it's in your name that we pray and we sing. Amen. Y'all can take a seat.
Most of the time in life, when something happens that delays us, it's easy for us to get frustrated. It's easy for us to get angry, to get stressed, to be anxious, because we don't know what's happening. And sometimes when you find yourself waiting in life, it can become a struggle to know what to do with yourself. This is actually one of the themes in Joseph's life. I don't even know how long Joseph had been in prison, but he waited 2 years after the cupbearer left without ever hearing anything. And at some point, I believe that Joseph had to be thinking to himself, why has God denied me? But a delay is not a denial. Joseph's dreams were on delay, but God still had a plan. You can only be faithful where you are. And if you're faithful there, God will move you to where you need to be. When I find myself in a time of waiting, one of the questions I can ask is, how can I grow right now? Good morning. Welcome to the gathering. I'm glad you guys are here. On your way in, you were probably offered one of these connection cards, and if you didn't take it, you are about to miss out. Because I like to think of this as the multi-tool for Sunday morning. If you use your connection card right, you have something to take with you, and you have something to leave behind. I don't know how many times I tell you, come to the early services. Much more on my game then. On the back of this, there's this place for sermon notes, and that's where you can, if the preacher says something amazing, you can write it down. And if the preacher doesn't say something amazing, you can doodle there, draw pictures, or just count down the time until he's done. Also, there's something you can leave behind, this part of your card that you tear off. You can drop it in one of the offering boxes as you go. But on this card, there's a place for you to write a note to us. So you can tell us what's going on in your life, how we can pray for you, how we can celebrate with you, questions you have, comments, any of that, you can write that there. If you're here today for the first or second time, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. I'd love it if you'd fill out one of these cards also. There's actually a little box that you can check that says first time or second time. And if you'll check that box and drop it in one of our boxes on the way out, then we have a special gift that we would like to send to you this week. I do want to point out one more option on this card for everybody. Right under where it says next steps, it says, I would like to be baptized. Next Sunday is Baptism Sunday. So if this is a step that you have not yet taken in your life, it is your next step in your spiritual journey. And I would love to invite you, check that box, let us know. We'll be in touch this week and help you get all ready for next week, and you can take this big step of obedience to God. We've been studying Joseph. We've been walking through his life this month, and Joseph is one of these guys that I think has just got a powerful life story. Partly because in his life we see a lot of parallels to Jesus, but then also because we see so many practical examples for our own lives. And I don't know about you, but as we've gone through this series, I just have over and over been again, man, yeah, that speaks to me. That tells me something I need to work on so that I can grow into the person that God created me to be. And I think today is no different. As you think about the life of Joseph, one of the words that I would use to describe Joseph is he is a person who is not free, right? He lived much of his life in captivity. I mean, he was literally a slave for a good portion of time, and then he was imprisoned because he was lied about. For a time, his brothers threw him in a pit. So over and over again, we see Joseph as a person who was controlled by other people and who was controlled by his life circumstances. And yet we see in Joseph a person who lived with incredible freedom. And I want to ask myself, where does that come from? Like, what was Joseph's secret as to how, even though all these other outside factors were always acting on him in ways he didn't choose, how is it that he was able to live with such freedom? And this is what I think the secret is. Everyone can experience freedom by choosing forgiveness over bitterness. I mean, let's be honest. If Joseph was a bitter guy, we wouldn't blame him. We'd say, if there's one guy who deserves to be bitter, it's Joseph. His brothers were terrible to him. I mean, his father put him in a horrible situation. His brothers sold him into slavery. Potiphar's wife lied about him. The guys in prison forgot about him. Joseph had reason to be bitter. He spent decades of his life in a place he didn't want to be, doing things he didn't want to do. And yet we never see in Joseph any sense of bitterness. And I want to suggest to you this morning, that's because Joseph understood and he chose forgiveness. Now, we left off the story last week. Joseph had been called into Pharaoh's palace, and he interpreted Pharaoh's dreams. He said there's going to be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. Make sure you collect a lot during the years of plenty so you have some during the years of famine. And then we saw that people came from all over because there was food in Egypt. And then in chapter 42, the story shifts back to Joseph's family. Now, I'm going to give you a quick assignment. This week, read Genesis 42 to 45, so you can get all of the details, because I'm going to kind of race through it. You won't get to see all the details this morning. But in chapter 42, Joseph's father, Jacob, says to his brothers, go to Egypt because there's food there. And so they make their way to Egypt, and when they get to Egypt, they meet this guy who's second in command of all of Egypt, and who has control over all of the food. And because they desperately need food, they all come in, and he seems to be a royal figure, so they all bow down to him. And what the brothers don't know, but what we know, and what Joseph knows, is that it's Joseph. They think he's just some Egyptian official, but Joseph knows who it is. And he looks at his brothers, and he doesn't reveal who he is. Instead, he begins to test them a little bit. He accuses them of being spies. You guys just come to spy on Egypt to find out where our weak spots are. They say, no, we're not spies. We're not spies. We promise. We're just guys. We're hungry, and we're from Canaan, and we heard you had food. But Joseph throws them into prison and keeps them there for a couple days, and he pulls them out and again accuses them of being spies. They say, no, we're not spies. We're just, we're here. Our father sent us. We've got one other brother. We left him behind. And Joseph says, hold on a minute. You've got one other brother? Now, Joseph knows who their other brother is. Their other brother is Benjamin. And Benjamin is the only full brother of Joseph. Remember, this is a super dysfunctional family. You got all these brothers, you got 4 moms. So all of these brothers are Joseph's half-brothers, but Benjamin is his full brother. Joseph and Benjamin are the sons of Rachel, Jacob's favorite wife. And so Joseph says to them, tell you what, I'll let you prove that you're not spies. You go back to your father and bring me your other brother as proof. But just to make sure you come back, I'm going to keep one of you here. And so they leave Reuben, the oldest, behind, and he has to stay in prison while the brothers go back to their father. And as all of this is unfolding, the brothers are starting to ask each other, why is this happening? What's going on? And they reach a conclusion in verse 21. It says, and they said to each other, obviously we are being punished for what we did to our brother. And so what's revealed here is that the brothers are still carrying this weight of guilt. This was decades ago. And they still remember what they had done to Joseph. And they think that somehow God is getting them back for that. They said, we saw his deep distress when he pleaded with us, but we would not listen. And that is why this trouble has come to us. They reveal here something that we didn't see earlier in the story. And it's that as Joseph was being carried off to Egypt, having been sold by his brothers, he was crying out, screaming, yelling, begging, pleading for his life. And if you remember 2 weeks ago, while this was going on, the brothers ate lunch because they were so cold and so callous, and they're remembering this. And I want to point this verse out to you this morning, not because I want us to think about what it says about the brothers, but I want you to think about what it says about Joseph. Because it reminds us of what Joseph has been through. It reminds us of the deep pain and hurt and betrayal that he feels towards the brothers. And so when those brothers show up, what do you think Joseph should do? What would you do? I know what I'd do. I hope I wouldn't do that. But I'd be tempted. Remember, Joseph is the second most powerful man in the land. He can do anything he wants. He could say in that moment, I want these men all executed. And he wouldn't even have to say why. And it would have happened. So what will Joseph do? Interestingly enough, Joseph provides for them. He fills their bags with grain and sends them back. But what he doesn't tell them is that he tells his servants to put their money back in their bags. Partly because Joseph wants to provide for them, but also because Joseph wants to test them. And so as the brothers are on their way back, they open their bags and discover our money's still in our bags, and now they're terrified because this man in Egypt that they don't know has already accused them of being spies, and now he's going to think that they're also thieves. So they go home and they tell their dad, and they're like, Dad, this went really badly. We got the food, but he kept Reuben, and we still have our money, and he says we've got to bring Benjamin back. And right here, Jacob again reveals one of the reasons why this family is so dysfunctional. Because you would think that as a father, when he heard that his son Reuben is still in prison, his response would have been, what? Reuben's still in prison? We've got to do whatever we can to go get him. And instead his response is, you're not taking Benjamin. Because now Benjamin is his favorite. Joseph was his favorite, and now Benjamin is his favorite. He says, I don't care about Reuben. Reuben can rot in prison. You're not taking Benjamin. And he's stubborn about it until the food runs out. And eventually the food runs out, and the famine is still going, and they are hungry. And the brothers again come back to their dad and say, Dad, we've got to go back for food, and we have to take Benjamin. And Judah steps up and he says, Dad, look, I know you don't want to send him, but I will take care of him. And you have my promise that if anything happens to Benjamin, you can take out your revenge on me. And so Jacob relents, and he sends Benjamin, and they go back. And they get back to Joseph and meet Joseph again, and Joseph tells his servants, I want you to prepare a banquet for these men. And so they have a banquet, and they're all sit down, and amazing amounts of food in front of them, and Joseph comes in, and Joseph sees Benjamin, his brother, his younger brother, his younger brother that he loved dearly, the only brother that didn't mistreat him, that didn't betray him. And he can't contain himself, and he runs out of the room crying, and all of this is very confusing to the brothers, and that's when they notice that, hey, Benjamin actually has 5 times more food than all of us. This is really weird, and you would think this would be a hint to them, hey, something's going on here. They don't get it. They don't figure it out. But Joseph is watching them. He's testing them. And he has one final test, so he fills their bags again with grain and sends them on their way. And as the brothers leave Egypt, they look behind and they see people coming, and it's soldiers, it's Joseph's soldiers, chasing them down. And when the soldiers arrive, they tell the brothers, one of you has stolen our master's silver cup. And the brothers say, no, not us, we're honest men. Irony there. We're honest men. We wouldn't do that. Go ahead, search our bags. None of us did that. And so the soldiers search the bags, and they find the gold or the silver cup in the bag of Benjamin. And now for the brothers, the terror really sets in because they realize what this means. They're going to take Benjamin back. And the best case scenario is that Benjamin will spend the rest of his life in prison, and the worst case scenario is that they're going to kill Benjamin. So the brothers go back with Benjamin, and once they get back, Judah steps forward. Now, Judah is not a good guy. Like in the book of Genesis, we see over and over that Judah is not a good guy, but here we see a sign that Judah is growing, that he's changing, that he's maturing. He steps up and he says, look, if you do something to Benjamin, it will kill my father. So let me take his place. By the way, Judah is the ancestor of Jesus. And don't miss the picture here, that it's Jesus that steps up for us to the Father and says, let me take their place. And when Joseph sees that Judah has changed, that's enough for him. He's decided finally, okay, the brothers have changed, and he reveals himself, and he says, guys, look, it's me, Joseph. And you got to imagine the brothers are feeling a lot of mixed emotions here. It's like, what do you say? Hey, good to see you. How you been doing? Things kind of ended up abruptly last time. No, the brothers are terrified because they know that Joseph holds all the power, and he could easily kill them, but Joseph speaks kindly to them. He says, guys, look, go home. Go get dad, get the whole family, get all your families, bring everybody back here. Let me take care of you. I'll make sure you have enough to eat. I'll put you in the best places. You'll have fantastic houses. You'll be safe. Just get everybody back here. Let's start again. And it's this beautiful picture of Joseph taking care of the people who betrayed him. And it raises a question in my mind. Because obviously, Joseph has forgiven his brothers. But when did he do that? When do you think Joseph forgave his brothers? I have a couple answers to that question. The first one is I think he forgave them long before he saw them. And I have 2 reasons for thinking that. The first reason is that if he hadn't forgiven them, he would have killed them. Right? If Joseph had allowed bitterness to grow up inside of him for decades and allowed hatred and anger for his brothers to grow up inside of him, when he finally saw them, he would have essentially said, okay, I want these guys dead now. But he didn't. And that indicates to me that somehow Joseph had been able to let go of something. Also, if you look at Joseph's life, I would suggest that Joseph never could have risen to the levels he rose without forgiveness. You see, if Joseph had let bitterness run his life, he wouldn't have been elevated in Potiphar's house, because the thread that we see through Joseph's life is that everywhere Joseph goes, he makes other people's lives better. That's why he always gets elevated, because he's making other people's lives better. And please understand this, bitter people don't make other people better, because they're too focused on themselves and their own bitterness and their own hurt and their own hatred. And Joseph is not ruled by bitterness, and so everywhere he goes, he makes others better. So he rises up in Potiphar's house, he rises up in the prison, he rises up in Pharaoh's house, because he's let go of his bitterness. I think that probably as Joseph was walking to Egypt, he realized that he didn't know what was happening, but that he believed God had a plan. And Joseph, somewhere down inside, had this firm belief that God's plan is better than mine. God's plan is never derailed. God's timing is always perfect. And so because of that, Joseph realized, I have to let go of this hurt. I have to let go of this pain so I can be who God wants me to be wherever it is that he has me. And Joseph began this process of forgiveness. I want to take the rest of our time this morning and talk about forgiveness. And what I want to talk to you about is 5 principles of forgiveness that we can discover in the life of Joseph. All right, so 5 principles about forgiveness from the life of Joseph. Principle number 1, forgiveness is a choice. That's a key word. Forgiveness is a choice to stop replaying the pain of the past. Do you know what we like to do when somebody hurts us? We like to put it on instant replay. If you've been watching March Madness, you know what instant replay is. You know what it is if you haven't been watching, right? They love to do this in sporting events. A really good play happens, and they'll show you the instant replay so you can watch it again. And as you watch it again, sometimes they slow it down, and they analyze it, and they talk you through it. Like, hey, this guy, he ran over here and cut through here, and this guy, he did this, and this guy, what he was thinking was this, and they show you the whole thing. And don't we love to do this with our hurts? Don't we love to put them on replay and often slow them down and break them down and begin to analyze them? That guy, he didn't come to my birthday party. I hate him for that. And I don't know what he says is the reason, but I know the reason he didn't come to my birthday party is because he doesn't like what I said about him the other day, even though I was right. And so he's just being a jerk about it. And I know he told me he couldn't come because he had to go to a birthday party with his family, but he's a liar. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm taking the hurt, I'm slowing it down, I'm analyzing it, I'm breaking it down, and I'm starting to say, I know what their motives are, I know what their intentions are, and you know what I'm going to do when I'm done replaying it? I'm going to replay it again. Right? Because this is what we do with our hurts. We replay them, and we replay them, and we replay them. And you know what happens? Is every time we replay them, we get more angry. And we hate them just a little bit more. And we grow just a little bit more bitter. And that bitterness begins to eat us from the inside out. And eventually, our bitterness destroys us. You see, forgiveness is a choice. That I am not going to keep replaying my hurt. Now understand this. You can't always choose when that hurt starts to play. Right? There are times you can't control it. Something around you triggers it. Maybe it's seeing something or hearing something or being around someone or whatever else it may be. Maybe it's a specific date or going to a specific place. Whatever it is, you can't always control when that hurt starts to play. But you can control what you do with it then. And the human choice, the natural choice, the easy choice is to let it keep playing and then rewind it and play it again and then rewind it, maybe pause it at one moment and be like, oh, that part really makes me mad, right? But the choice of forgiveness is a choice to say, I'm going to hit stop. And I'm not going to keep playing this. Now understand something. It can be helpful. It can be helpful to intentionally talk about our hurts with someone who can help us heal. That can be helpful. But it is not helpful to endlessly talk about everything to everyone to try to make ourselves feel better. And this is what we do sometimes, isn't it? It's like, I'm going to tell everybody my story because I want to make that person look bad. I want to make me look good. And so I'm going to tell everybody my story. And if somebody confronts me on that and says, hey, you should stop talking about that, it's not making you feel any better, I'm going to say, I'm processing my hurt, so back off, buddy. No, you're not processing your hurt, you're growing your bitterness. And you're letting that bitterness grow up inside of you. Find one person who knows what they're doing, who can help you work through it towards healing. Don't share it with everybody you see. Forgiveness is a choice to stop replaying the pain of the past. And it's not a one-time choice. Here's the second principle. Forgiveness is a process, not a phrase or an event. Sometimes we think that forgiveness is something we do one time. It's like one event. Or I'm just going to say, I forgive you, and it's done. I don't have to worry about this anymore. But forgiveness is something that we have to keep doing, that we have to keep doing over time. I think Joseph forgave his brothers before he ever saw them again. And I think Joseph forgave his brothers every time he saw them. Every time he saw them, that hurt would start to play again, and he'd have to hit stop. Say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let my hurt, I'm not going to let my pain control me. I'm going to take control over it. I'm not going to replay that. You see, when we keep replaying it, even though we say, I forgave once, but I'm not going to forgive a second time, we put ourselves in a place where the bitterness just keeps coming back. Some of you know that when we first moved down here, for several years, I would drive back and forth between here and Michigan every week. Our kids were in high school. We wanted to let them finish there. And so we made the choice that I was going to be here on Sundays, and I'd be here on Monday, and then sometimes on Tuesdays, and sometimes on Wednesdays, and then I'd drive back 6 hours back to Michigan to spend the second half of the week with my family. And Saturday afternoon, I'd get back in the car, and I'd come back, and we'd start all over again. And every time I made that drive, the last stretch of the drive is on I-96 from Grand Rapids, Michigan to Muskegon, Michigan. And just before you get to Muskegon, there's this little town called Fruitport. And right after I passed Fruitport exit, it's exit 4, I would drive past this big, massive building. You couldn't miss it. It sits on 60 acres of property. It's over 100,000 square feet. It's got this big, massive billboard-sized sign right next to the highway. There's no way you could miss it. That's my old church. Some of you have heard me talk about that journey, that part of my journey, and the hurt there. And so for years, at least twice a week, I would drive past there. And I was already here. I was already in another place. But every time I drove past there, you know, because you've been here, I was transported back to that other place. Back to the hurt, back to the pain, back to the betrayal. And every time I drove past that building, I would have to make a choice. Am I going to let this memory play? Because there was a lot that could play. Am I going to let the gossip play? Am I going to let the emails play? Am I going to let the lies play? Am I going to let the phone calls? Am I going to let the things that were said to me and about me, to my kids and about my kids, to my wife and about my wife, am I going to let all of that play? And I'm going to be honest with you, for the first couple of years, yeah, I did. Because I didn't know how not to. And I would drive the last 15 minutes to my house, and I would be angry, and my heart would be full of hate. And I would walk in the door to see my family that I hadn't seen for days as an angry, hateful, bitter man. That's not who I wanted to be. And eventually I figured out, I can't do this. So I tried to drive a different route. It took me a half an hour longer because I had to come up US 31 instead of in 96. That didn't work because I'd get to that point where I'm like a half an hour later than I want to be. I'm like, the only reason I'm a half hour later than I want to be is because I didn't drive past that church. I didn't want to think about that church, and now I'm thinking about that church again. So I reached a point where I was like, I've got to be able to drive past that building and not play this story. And I learned that I literally had to drive past that building and say, that was horrible. What happened there was awful. But I forgive them. And then I keep going. And it wasn't just once. It was every time. But an amazing thing began to happen. As I began to take this new approach and this new perspective and say, I'm going to let go of this. I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm not going to hold on to this. I discovered that when I got home, I was no longer this bitter, angry person. I was this joyful person, super excited to see my family. And I could be the dad I wanted to be, and I could be the husband I wanted to be. But even better, when I started to drive past that building, I stopped thinking about all the bad, and I started to think about some of the good. Because I had some really good memories there. I loved being a youth pastor there, and I loved the kids that I had pastored there, and I had some really good friends that I got to interact with there. I had a small group there, and I still love all of them to this day. I had so many good memories, but the good memories were being choked out by the bitterness. And as I began to let go of the bitterness, I began to experience the freedom of re-experiencing the joy. Because here's the third principle. Are you ready? Forgiveness benefits us as much as it benefits those we forgive. And honestly, I should have said this better, because forgiveness benefits us more than it benefits those we forgive. Like, the forgiveness is really for us. I've heard the expression, that when you hold a grudge against someone, it's like drinking poison and hoping they die. That's how forgiveness works, right? If I don't offer my forgiveness to someone, if I don't forgive them in my heart, it doesn't affect them at all. There are people in this world who have done me wrong, and they don't know if I've forgiven them or not, and they don't care. And there are people in your world who have done you wrong. They don't know, they don't care. But your forgiveness can change you. Your forgiveness can make you better. Your forgiveness can move you from bitterness to freedom. Now, let me say something here, because this is really important. Forgiveness does not always equal closeness. All right? Sometimes we forgive. That doesn't mean we run back to where we were. No one can earn forgiveness, right? We have to give it. But sometimes proximity needs to be earned. That's what Joseph is doing in this story. He's actually testing the brothers. He's already forgiven them. His bitterness is gone. He's free of it. But now he's testing the brothers to say, can I let these guys re-enter my life? And I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. You can forgive an abuser without going back to them. Now, sometimes you can experience amazing reconciliation, and sometimes you can't, because sometimes they haven't changed. You can forgive them, you can keep forgiving them, you can let go of the hurt, you can let go of the pain, you can turn it over to God, and here's why. This is the fourth principle, because forgiveness trusts that God is in control. This was Joseph's secret. Joseph understood that he couldn't control his brothers. He had no idea whether he would ever see them again. He had no idea whether he would ever have an opportunity to reconcile with them. He had no idea what was coming, but he knew that God was in control, and so he could let go of it. See, often our bitterness comes from this place where we are trying to control other people. They did this to me, and until they undo it, I will not forgive them. Bitterness grows. They said that about me, and until they take it back and make restitution, I will not forgive them. Bitterness. I can't control what they do, but I know God's in control. Freedom. I can't control what they say, but I know God's in control. Freedom. Look at what Joseph says to his brothers when he reveals who he is. This is in chapter 45. He says, I am Joseph, your brother, the one you sold into Egypt. That's an important phrase because Joseph's not glossing over what they did, right? Forgiveness doesn't just be like, well, that didn't really happen. No. It happened, and it was bad, and it was awful. He says, you guys did something really bad. And then he says, but don't be worried or angry with yourselves for selling me here. He's telling them to let go of their guilt and their shame because God sent me ahead of you to preserve life. Joseph says, guys, look, the reason I can forgive you is because God had a plan. And it was hard, right? Joseph didn't always know the plan. He always knew there was a plan. But when he was being sold as a slave, he didn't know the plan. When he was lied about, he didn't know the plan. When he was in prison, he didn't know the plan. When he was forgotten, he didn't know the plan. Only now can he look back and say, oh, now I see the plan. But through all of it, Joseph understood God's plan is never derailed and his timing is always perfect. And because of that, he was able to forgive. And for us to really be able to forgive others, we have to get to this place where I say, I can't control them. I can't control what they say or what they do or what they think, but I know that God is in control. So I will work at what I can control and give the rest to him. And that brings us to our fifth principle, is that forgiveness is a response to God's grace. Jesus told a story in Matthew 18. We call it the story of the unforgiving servant. There's a guy, and he has accumulated so much debt that he could never pay it back in a lifetime. Even if he works his whole life, he'll never pay it back. And the person that he owes the debt to says to him, you're forgiven. Your debt's wiped clean, off the books, never have to worry about it again. Guy runs out into the streets, sees across the street a fellow that he knows that owes him $5. He runs across the street, grabs him, and he says, pay up now or I'm sending you to prison. And Jesus says, this guy doesn't understand forgiveness. Because those who have been forgiven much, forgive much. And you have been forgiven much. Let me remind you how much you've been forgiven. Luke chapter 23. Jesus is in the process of being crucified. And he says, Father, forgive them, because they do not know what they are doing. Now, Jesus is certainly talking about the men who are actually crucifying him. And I think Jesus is also talking about me. That Jesus is saying to his Father, Father, it's David's sins that have put me here. But please forgive him. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's David's missteps. It's David's shortcomings. The things he says, the things he does, the things he thinks that are outside of your plan. That's why I'm here, Father, but please forgive him. And he was saying that about you. Because you're carrying with you today shame and guilt and regret for things in the past. Things you've said, things you've done, things you wish you hadn't said or done. You know that you're not perfect. And you know that it's your sin that put Jesus on the cross. That as he lay on that cross, as they put those nails in his hand, that was for you. That was so that you could be forgiven. And sometimes I think the reason we struggle so much to forgive is because we've not fully embraced the forgiveness we've been given. That we know our own shortcomings, and we know our own flaws, and we know our own faults. We can't fully grasp this idea that the God of the universe loves us enough to forgive us of those things, and so we pass that bitterness on to others. I want to tell you this morning, the starting point to finding forgiveness and freedom is in accepting the forgiveness and freedom that God has given you. And there are some of you here this morning, and you feel like your life is being held back by something. You feel like your life is not what it could be. There's something holding back. You feel like you're chained down, and you know that it's because there are these roots of bitterness growing up inside of you. And can I challenge you that maybe you need to receive God's forgiveness for the first time? Maybe you have never fully opened yourself to him and said, God, I want your forgiveness. And today is the day for you to do that. You know, you don't have to go through any kind of ceremony, right? There's no checklist you have to go through. You don't have to wait till the end of the service when the choir is singing Just As I Am and you come down the aisle, right? We don't have a choir. They don't sing Just As I Am. You can do it right now. Right where you are. You can have this conversation with God and simply say to him, Father, I receive your forgiveness. Make me new. And he will. But this is for all of us too. Because there's a big question hanging over all of us. And it is this: how will I respond to the grace and the mercy and the forgiveness of God? For some of you this morning, your response to God's forgiveness, you need to stop. Stop replaying your hurt. Stop replaying the pain. Let go of it. For some of you who are here this morning, your response to God's forgiveness is to trust. Trust that God is in control. You may not see the whole plan, but you know that he has a plan. And you know that God's plan is never derailed and his timing is always perfect. And so for you, your response to God's forgiveness this morning is to trust that he has a plan. And because he has a plan, you can let go. And for some of you this morning, your response to God's grace and forgiveness is to offer forgiveness to someone. Maybe that means having a conversation. You know, the reality is there are some of you here this morning that you need to forgive someone that you will never see again. You may never see them again, but you can forgive them. Maybe you've moved away. Maybe there's some kind of a separation there. Maybe they're dead. But you've been carrying that pain and you've been carrying that hurt, and it's time for you to let go of it, and it's time for you to embrace forgiveness of someone you've never seen again, because that's how you can respond to God's forgiveness of you. None of us can change the past. The past has happened. We can't change it. And none of us can control other people. They're going to do what they do. They're going to say what they say. They're going to think what they think. And we can't control it. But what all of us can control and what all of us can change is what happens next. How I respond to what others have done. And when I choose the path of forgiveness, I will discover what Joseph discovered. That the path of forgiveness is the path of freedom. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your forgiveness. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your kindness. We thank you that Jesus was willing to pay the price for our forgiveness. And Father, I pray for my friends who are here, for those who are watching online, who are struggling to forgive. Father, empower us with your Spirit. Remind us that you are in control, that your plan is so much better than ours. And Father, give us the courage to take those first steps of letting go, choosing not to wallow in our pain, but to release it to you. Father, thank you for your love. Thank you for the confidence we have that you have forgiven us and that we will one day spend eternity with you as a result. In your name, amen. Thank you guys for being here this morning. If you want to stick around after we're done and pray a little bit, you're more than welcome to do that. Our prayer crew will be down front, and they would love to pray with you. If there's somebody in your life that is going through something right now, you want to pray for them, they would be happy to join you in that. Will you stand up with me before you go? Let me remind you one more time that God loves you. God has forgiven you. And this week, He wants to fill you with everything that is good. So if you'll pay attention to what He's doing in you and around you and through you, you will see that He is pouring into your life all of His goodness, His love, His grace, His mercy, His kindness, His hope, His joy, His peace, His strength, His forgiveness. And so this week, as He pours all of that goodness into you, it will begin to spill out of you, and it will impact the lives of everyone around you. You can be a person who's showing others the love of Jesus and the goodness of God. Let us all strive for that this week. I hope you guys have a great Sunday. I hope you have a great week. Come back next week, one more week of Joseph. I want to wrap that up with you next week. I hope to see you here for that. And until we're all together again, may God richly bless you. Have a fantastic day.